Salut à tous and welcome to this lesson on the use of a and de with adjectives in French. This is something that people tend to struggle with, and I completely understand why, but it's not something that I see people talking about or teaching very often, and they are quite important because using one or the other can, on occasion, change the meaning of what you're saying. So I'm going to address it in this video. I'm going to try and keep it short. I know a lot of my videos recently have been quite long, so let's dive straight in with the il est adjective de structure. You can also use c'est in exactly the same way. Il est is just a little bit more formal, but in terms of meaning, they are both the same thing, and they work in exactly the same way structurally. So in this case, the il is always impersonal. It doesn't refer back to anything in particular. It doesn't refer to anything we've mentioned before. It is just an it, right? And also, the thing that the adjective is describing hasn't been mentioned yet. That will come after the word de. So, for example, you can say, Il est important de travailler dur, meaning it is important to work hard. And notice we have the adjective important followed by the thing that is important, in this case, working hard. The same goes for c'est facile de parler français, meaning it is easy to speak French. The thing that is easy, speaking French, comes after the adjective, and that is always the case when we're using de. When we use a, though, things are a little bit different. In this case, there is no impersonal il. If ever we use il with adjective a, the il must refer back to something that we've previously mentioned. And this time, the thing that the adjective describes comes first. So, for example, son accent est facile à comprendre, meaning his accent is easy to understand. So the adjective here is facile, and the thing that is easy to understand, son accent, comes first. We've already mentioned it. Likewise, ce livre est fascinant à lire. This book is fascinating to read. The book comes before the adjective, and notice that there is no impersonal il here. Now sometimes we have a choice. We can express the same thing just using a different sentence structure. So for example, we've already seen ce livre est fascinant à lire. This book is fascinating to read. But we might also choose to say it is fascinating to read this book. Il est fascinant de lire ce livre. Now they both mean the same thing, but notice because of the structure of the sentence we've had to change it. If we start with the book and then the adjective, we need a, as in the first example, ce livre est fascinant à lire. If, however, we start with an impersonal it is, we need to use de. Il est fascinant de lire ce livre. The same goes for some of the other examples we've seen. So we had son accent est facile à comprendre. His accent is easy to understand, but we could reformulate it and say il est facile de comprendre son accent. It is easy to understand his accent. So notice how the words are being moved here. So the first one we have son accent at the start, in the second one we have son accent at the end. Essentially what you need to take away from this is that if you're going to use de, the whole thing has to start with the impersonal il est or c'est. Now the final thing that I want to bring up is why it is important to get the distinction between these two right. In many cases, I will admit, if you choose the wrong one, context and grammar will make it clear. But you need to be particularly careful when you're using the pronoun il, because as we've seen, sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's impersonal. So for example, if you say il est facile à aimer, because we've used a, we know that the il must be personal. It must refer to something we've previously mentioned. So this means he is easy to love. If, however, we say il est facile d'aimer, because we've used de, we've marked the il as impersonal. Instead, what we're saying is it is easy to love. Not this thing is easy to love, but generally loving is easy. So hopefully that distinction is clear. Like I said, in most cases, even if you get it wrong, you won't cause any confusion because the other pronouns, je, tu, elle, on, nous, vous, and il, elle plural, they are never impersonal, so you just won't use de with them. But when you're using il, because it can be both personal and impersonal, you need to make sure that you get it right. Try not to worry about this one too much. It's not a major issue, but hopefully this video has cleared up the differences for those of you who are perhaps having some difficulty with it. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And until next time, à bientôt!